if they're a big company, they are being spoken about on Reddit. And just like any other marketing channel, would you rather ignore it and be not in control of that marketing channel, or would you rather be a part of the conversation?
Hey, everyone, and welcome back to the Social Media CX podcast. Before we get into it, let me set the stage for you all. Today, I am joined by Danny Kirk, the founder of ReadyReach, which is a marketing agency specializing in Reddit marketing, hence ReadyReach in the name. They do things around AI search, growth, and strategy for Reddit. And Danny has worked with over 500 brands, helping them show how showing up authentically on social, hello, like all the things we talk about, and on Reddit specifically, is increasingly helping with things like AI driven search results that are shaping how customers find trust in your brand or just find your brand. So excited to talk to him during our full month of all AI and social media content here on the podcast. Danny, welcome to the Social Media CX Show.
Hey, Brooke, thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much for coming. I can't tell you how many conversations we've been in with clients over the past, I'd say like 2 years or so. The conversation around Reddit has really spiked. So my first question is, before we get into like some of the deeper questions, why do you think people are just now jumping onto the Reddit bandwagon?
I think it's because for the past 20 years, it's been a very obscure corner of the internet. I think it is still a very obscure corner of the internet. Why people are interested now, and especially brand owners, some of the companies you get to work with, and myself as well, is they're seeing their organic traffic go off a cliff, and they're wondering where it's going to. It's likely going to AI search these days. So then they maybe dig a little deeper. They hear that Reddit is a large single source of training data, and then they're like, "Whoa, what is Reddit?"
Yes. Yeah. AI, the shiny new thing, has brought us to Reddit, which is the shiny new thing, even though it's not new.
Yeah, exactly. They've been around for a long time, but it's like a new chapter for them, that's for sure.
So let's start with like a big picture question, because I do think a lot of brands have a complicated relationship with Reddit. They either ignore it completely, tried it once and maybe got roasted, so they didn't stick around. I was literally teaching a class today on marketing, and some of my students were saying that they looked at Reddit as a part of the company and the product line that they work for, and they saw that it was a lot of negative conversation, right? So they're like, "Ooh, no, we don't want to go there because there's negative conversation." So I think that happens, or they're vaguely aware that it matters, but they just really don't know where to start. So I think, to address the elephant in the room right up front, why should brands or a brand, especially if they're an enterprise sized brand, care about Reddit right now in the year 2026?
Yep. So assuming that they're a large company that has a bunch of customers and a lot of people talk about a couple of different reasons. First and foremost, if they're a big company, they are being spoken about on Reddit. And just like any other marketing channel, would you rather ignore it and be not in control of that marketing channel, or would you rather be a part of the conversation? And who knows, maybe even learn something from what is being said. Now, the second part about that is that Reddit is still the largest single source of training data for AI. So yet again, organic search is moving to agentic search, to AI search. And if AI is not seeing your brand, if it's also not understanding your brand, I ran into a brand owner the other day who said that AI was just saying false things, as we know AI does, about their brand, just because it had bad information. The schema on their website wasn't correct. It couldn't read all the information. So for those two reasons, you really want to be paying attention right now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think that's such a great foundation, especially if you're a larger brand, which we typically work with enterprise brands for our social care services, they've already got those conversations happening. We always go take a peek on Reddit, and I would say 9.5 times out of 10 we find that there's a there on Reddit for them. So I think that's a great foundation. And I think the business story around Reddit itself is really important context here, because Reddit is finally profitable. You were telling me this when we were talking in our pre-call previous to scheduling this. The IPO happened. Google is paying something like $60 million to annually license Reddit data. hi, if Google's paying $60 million to license their data, it must be important. Sam Altman holds a stake in Reddit stock. If you don't know who Sam Altman is, he is one of the co-founders of OpenAI, which is ChatGPT. So it's not a scrappy forum. Like I think a lot of people still think it's like one of those like website forums. It's actual infrastructure. So my question is, from your perspective, what does Reddit's financial maturity, like the fact that all of these things are happening with these big players in the technology space, what does that mean for brands that are still on the fence about showing up on a site like Reddit?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think about human incentives a lot. Um, Reddit now has a business model of selling human data. That's what they have on their platform. There's really amazing forum of incredibly passionate people. That's where passionate people hang out. And finally, AI comes along and wants to scrape that, and now they have a business model. So what's Reddit's incentive is to keep humans on the platform, not have bots on the platform, and AI companies' incentive is to keep buying that data so they can keep training their models on ever-changing human information. And yet again, since it's the largest single source of training data, why brand owners should be caring is that if you're not a part of that conversation or you're not kind of steering the conversation with factually accurate information, you may just be left behind in this ever changing time. So that's really why it's important to kind of be paying attention and get the snowball building.
Yeah, I really want to talk about one of the things you said or pull on the human data angle that you talked about, because what I find fascinating about Reddit from a social media customer care or social care perspective, and this, which is what we talk about on this show, is that Reddit is arguably one of the richest sources of unfiltered human conversations on the internet, if I'm not mistaken. So we've got real people because, like you said, they crack down on bots, which we'll talk about too. These people have real opinions. They have real frustrations, real feelings. They're giving real buying signals or churn signals, friction signals within those conversations. And it's all completely unsolicited. And now we know, as we've been talking about, and we've talked about on some past episodes, AI is training on these conversations. So large language models are pulling from Reddit conversations to generate some of these AI answers, recommendations, or product comparisons. So I want you to talk to me about Reddit as an AI training ground. With all of this human data it has, a natural language processing, right? NLP is how AI works best. These are all these natural conversations that are happening. What does it mean for brands who have a presence or who don't, that Reddit is literally shaping part of what AI says about you? Is this like an angle to get people to get on Reddit more quickly? Or what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's just that people are talking about your brand, whether favorably or unfavorably on Reddit. And yet again, if it was, we're talking e-commerce brands. So say you have Google reviews or Trustpilot or whatever other platform. Imagine, there's a lot of reviews over there and you don't care if they're good or bad. No brand owner would agree with that. They'd be like, of course, like, like, what can I do? This is
Uh-huh.
the exact same thing. And furthermore, AI is training on those reviews effectively. So you have everyone talking about your brand, and then AI is training on it. And I always tell people to kind of zoom out and imagine, the next generation, younger than ourselves. You and I have grown up with 10 blue links, and now we're also seeing AI recommendations. So we've kind of spanned the gap. Now, the next generation that's younger than us may never know 10 blue links, and they have an emotional relationship with their AI. Maybe they take 2 weeks to chat through a problem they're having, and it's an in-depth chat. They've come back 20 times. And finally, it's like, hey, do you want me to recommend a few products for you that might be able to solve that? Of course, they're going to take that recommendation over 10 blue links. It's an emotional relationship. And also, that future demographic that's younger than us is not even going to know Google search. It's only going to be AI search. So that's why it's really important to start that snowball now. Our demographic may still use Google search as long as it's available, but the future customers you may or may not have are the ones that you really need to care about. And one note on Reddit that you kind of mentioned, It's not to say that Reddit is the only source of great human training data. It is the only open source of human training data. Facebook's been around for a while. There's a lot of brands being mentioned on Facebook. You have to have a login to see what is being said. So Reddit is totally open. You can't comment or upvote if you don't have a account, but anybody can go in there and see the conversation. And that's why it's a great source of training data and has been chosen by AI to train on.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, we tell customers who are even maybe thinking about Reddit or like, no, Reddit's not for me. At least go scrape some of the conversations that are happening there about your brand, your products, your services, your stakeholders, and come back and analyze that, because that might be a little bit of a sway for you to join the platform.
And I think it's a good thing. You know, 90% of the people I talk to, are like, oh, there's a bad conversation on Reddit about our brand. First and foremost, it's usually like one post out of 100, and they're myopic on that. And then secondly, if we're being intellectually honest about it, wouldn't you want to hear the feedback of your customers? Maybe there's an issue there. Maybe they're giving you free information to go better your product or service.
Yeah. I mean, literally, I think this is such an important part. Brands are so like they salivate over acquisition or gaining new customers. They don't spend enough time on retention or retaining the customers. So if we can find out from these negative conversations what needs to be fixed and then go and actually fix that thing, we can potentially save ourselves from losing those customers, increasing lifetime customer value, all of those cool things that we talk about on this podcast all the time. So I love that you brought that up. You talk a lot about GEO or AEO, answer engine optimization, or generative engine optimization. They all mean the same thing, right? We're still figuring out all the acronyms around this.
Yeah, nobody knows what they're called.
Yeah, same concept, different names. But the idea is that brands need to optimize not just for search engines now, so not just for people. We've always optimized for people. We've been optimizing of late for search engines. But now we need to optimize for AI answers. How does Reddit specifically fit into a specific like GEO or AEO strategy? And what do you think showing up on Reddit actually looks like when the goal is AI visibility and not just platform traffic?
Yeah, absolutely. So Reddit, as of the current data I've seen, makes up roughly 20% of all citations from AI at any one time. That is an incredibly broad generalization based on the model, based on your industry. B2C companies might have a little bit higher percentage. B2B companies might have a much lower percentage. Let's just call it 20%. So it's the largest single source. Now there's the other 80% of things we all need to be doing to show up in AI search, but it's the largest single source. What's interesting about answer engine optimization or GEO is that when with Google search, Google would only recommend things favorably. You search for something, and the like 10 blue links would be like, "Hey, these are the things we recommend." Now, if you ask AI about a brand, it may tell you something unfavorable about that brand, which is kind of interesting. So it's not only being on there, having brand awareness on Reddit, but also shaping that sentiment as well, making sure people have factually accurate information, making sure that you're answering people's questions, being helpful, spreading positive brand awareness. So it's not only just about being seen. It's not just Google, like, let's show up on page one. It's more like, let's show up on page one and have accurate information and be recommended.
It's similar, it sounds like, to what we tell people with social care. Like, these conversations are happening. We need you to, A, collect the voice of customer data, which is passive and still reactive. But B, we need you to join that conversation, no matter if it's positive, neutral, or negative, and kind of help guide the narrative in the way you want it to go, right? We can't always force people into our narrative, but we might be able to gently guide the conversation, but we have to join the conversation to do that. Is that similar?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Just joining the conversation, understanding what people are saying, really empathizing with what is being said is absolutely the first step.
Awesome. I want to get into something else that I think is really important that you mentioned to me. And it was honestly one of the things that really made me excited when we were talking on our pre-call. And that is that you were saying that Reddit is really cracking down on bots and automation. and that they're actively trying to protect the integrity of human conversation in a way that most social platforms, if we're being honest, are not doing at all. In fact, some of them might be doing the opposite. But from a social care philosophy standpoint, this is exactly what I think how it should be, how the social ecosystem should be. So, can you tell us a little bit more about Reddit's war on bots and automation? What's happening? What are the consequences for brands that try to game that system? And, why does it matter, essentially?
Yeah, absolutely. So back to incentives, Reddit's incentive is to stay profitable. And what does that mean? They need to keep selling human data. And if they get too many bots, then that dilutes their product effectively. So they want to get bots off their platform and keep the human conversation going. Yeah, they've been cracking down over the past year. Actually, one of my predictions for 2026 was a big crackdown on bots. And that actually came in March of this year. There was a Devit release where they allowed, ironically, they fight bots with bots. So they're allowing more bots to be put on subreddits to look for bot activity. They're requiring accounts that they believe to be bots. They're actually fine with bots on their platform, but they now have to flag themselves as bots. So they were actually having kind of human validation of accounts, if it's a human or if it's a bot. Long story short, it's easier than ever to do well on Reddit because if you're a good actor, if you're just doing human things, joining the conversation, being helpful, being value add, you're going to rise to the top. You're going to look great. And everyone else that is an automation or doing things poorly is a race to the bottom. So yeah, focusing on community, focusing on finding your tribe there, your 1,000 true fans is what you want to be doing.
It just makes me so excited and I love it so much. And it leads perfectly into a little bit of something I want to push on because on this show, we say it all the time, right? The brands that win on social are the ones that show up like humans. They're not in the content hamster wheel. It's not about content calendars. It's not about distributing content any longer. It's not about scheduling out all of your salesy messages. It's not about using bots to put out your content and answer every post that's out there. And Reddit seems like maybe the only true platform, maybe LinkedIn a little bit secondary, but LinkedIn is a far second place. Reddit seems to be the only platform that enforces this the most aggressively. And you've said you see yourselves as the good marketers on Reddit. So what does it actually look like in practice to be a good marketer on Reddit? And how do you separate your brand from the ones that are racing to the bottom on Reddit? Like, how do you become one of those brands that thrive on Reddit versus getting banned or ignored?
We focus on white hat tactics. A lot of our other peers or even brands that are doing it themselves are sharing fake testimonials. They're manipulating upvotes and downvotes. I'm not a lawyer, but that's an FTC violation from the counsel I've been given.
Yeah.
And the argument of that would be, oh, it's anonymous. Nobody will ever find out. It's becoming easier to find out with AI and tracking and, all that jazz. So not only is that unsavory and a poor way of doing marketing, in my opinion, it's also illegal. There's tons of companies and agencies doing that. So we're the exact opposite of that direction. We're 100% human, don't use any automations. We don't make false claims. There is no manipulation or influencing going on. We're trying to do our best job representing the 47 to 9-figure companies that we represent on there. And yet again, that's not hard to do. You just act like a human. You spread factually accurate information about the brand with no false claims in it. You're helpful to other people. You answer questions, and it's going to be a good day if you do that.
I mean, it sounds so simple. Because if you're a good actor, it is, I guess. So
yeah, it definitely is. And that's not to say that bad things can't happen. Sometimes you get a moderator that doesn't even follow their own rules because there's still a human in the mix. That's the interesting part of it. Each subreddit is like a little nation state with kings and queens. And they make their own rules, and sometimes they don't even follow their own rules. So, I even with my personal account, which I do no marketing from, I get things deleted all the time just because a human has to decide, and sometimes they just don't like what I said. So that's not to say that bad things can't happen. Bad things can happen on any marketing platform. But I mean, boy, Facebook and Meta, Instagram, I mean, big changes all the time. It's just focusing on doing a good job and letting that compound over time is the way to do it.
I want to bring things back a little bit towards social care because that's really what we talk about on this show all the time. And I think that the way that you describe Reddit or using Reddit, authentic human conversations, real questions, real frustrations, real buying signals, real answers, to me, it doesn't sound like a marketing channel. It sounds like an experience or a care channel. So, in your opinion, how are the brands doing this well, actually using Reddit for customer experience? Are they just monitoring and collecting that passive voice of customer data? Are they actually also responding? Are they doing both? Are they building dedicated presence in relevant subreddits? Like you were mentioning some of the subreddit. Like, what is good social care? Not just marketing, but what does good social care look like on Reddit?
Yeah, for sure. So for those big brands that do have a big presence on there, there's conversations about them happening, whether or not they're a part of it. They're joining the conversation. They're learning things from what people are saying, gathering that customer voice, and then they're engaging with it, not only from a branded account where they're saying, hey, I'm from the brand. How can I help? Heard you had some problems. Here are some resources. What can I do? Kind of the fairy godmother of the brand, just floating around being helpful, but also maybe making their own subreddit, which they can be in control of, sharing new product releases on there, building kind of more of a tribe. The brands that I see playing long-term games are doing things like that.
Can you just, for everybody who's listening or watching and maybe isn't familiar with Reddit, can you explain the difference between like a brand account and a personal account? Because that's kind of a big thing on Reddit as well.
Yeah, we call it branded and non-branded. So branded account would be like Ford's, u Nike, Nike's account. And my personal account is something like prestigious leopard with some numbers behind it. I can't even remember which one it is. It's a randomized username that you're assigned. And if you don't put a real username in there, that's just the one you get. So branded and non-branded. And you can do great work from both. The best brands that I know of that are on there are doing both branded and non-branded activities. So you can certainly leverage both to do Reddit marketing well.
That's a great tip, y'all. So branded and unbranded ways to think about how your Reddit strategy should go. One of the things that I pulled from your other podcast appearances that I want to dig into is something you said around comments. And you said comments matter more than posts on Reddit. And that got me super excited because our tagline is think conversation, not campaign. And in our social care work, we tag and code conversations and comments for things like acquisition signals, retention signals, engagement signals. And Reddit comments are some of the richest unstructured customer data that exists based on the conversation that we've been having. So why are you saying comments matter more than posts on Reddit? And why or what are brands missing when they focus only on publishing instead of participating in that comment layer?
Yeah, a couple of different things on the human aspect of it. When you market on Reddit, you want to be value add, you want to be helpful. You're not really, you're not helpful that much in posts. Posts are kind of inherently promotional. You're waving your hand and saying, hey, look at me. Comments are where you can answer questions. You can chime in with helpful information. So you can be value add there. So that's a reason kind of human to do it. And then furthermore, AI is reading comments for the human sentiment. They are citing a post as the citation, but the reason why they're citing it is because the comments in it are giving them some information about that recommendation. So that is where AI is getting its data from, its kind of qualitative human data from.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Switching gears a little bit, I want to address some fears that people might have around Reddit. We work with a lot of like highly regulated brands, and some of those brands, not all of them, but some of them immediately hear Reddit and think risk. One wrong move and we're going to get roasted in front of millions of people, which is honestly not just saved for Reddit. People think that, or brands think that a lot about social in general. But how do you, when you're talking to brands, reframe that risk conversations for brands who are scared? And is the risk of showing up actually greater or smaller than the risk of not showing up, especially as we've been talking about AI pulls more and more data from Reddit?
Yeah, so I mean, risks associated with it. All marketing channels have risks, all social channels have risks. Yet again, be a good actor on the platform. Don't do anything illegal or shady. Be helpful, be value add, dip your toes into it. Don't go all out the day one, kind of learn about the ethos of your tribe and your subreddits that you want to engage in on there. And I think it's going to be okay. There's a lot more details to that, but just be a good actor on the platform and it'll go well. And then is there more of a risk to not do it or do it? Um, Yet again, AI is sycophantic. It says things to please people. So if it is going to say something about your brand, it's going to say something about your competitor's brand, whether it's really recommending or not recommending things. So you really want to be a part of that conversation because it is going to say something versus, yet again, standard Google search or whatnot. It's only recommending the top things. AI may have some misinformation about your brand and may just be spreading that around because it doesn't know any better. So I think, and yet again, with that demographic that's younger than us, that are your future customers that only know AI search, you really want to be thinking about them and optimizing for them. I always say this is SEO 20 years ago when we all wish we would have started. This is the snowball you want to be building today.
I love that analogy and example because yes, well, you and I have been around for a long time, so I totally relate to that. I want to go into something that's super actionable because the listeners are usually the people who listen. Our audience here are practitioners. They are social care managers, they're CX leaders, sometimes they're community managers or on the social team. So they're not necessarily decision makers all the time, but they're the ones who have to make that case internally many times. So if someone were listening and they want to make the case for Reddit to their stakeholders or leadership, what is one data point or argument that you think lands every time you talk about it?
Yeah, I think, yet again, just back to the AI search, it's the largest single source of training data. Their organic traffic is gone off a cliff and they don't know where it's going. More people are using AI search than ever, and that's a trend that's going to continue. In the future, it's going to be 100%. The reason to get on it today is not all brands are doing it, so it's easier than ever to start building that snowball. So that's why these social managers should be starting that process.
Makes a lot of sense. Last question, and I ask this because it's the through line of everything that we've been talking about on the show. What's one thing you wish every brand understood about Reddit that almost no one gets right?
I think everyone thinks that Reddit is a bunch of trolls. The way I describe it is it's a bunch of passionate people. Now, when you meet a passionate person, excuse me, they're usually screaming from the rooftop about something. Sometimes it's bad things, sometimes it's good things. Mention one brand and they're like, oh, that's the worst thing on the planet. They mention another brand and they're like, that's the best thing on the planet. So it's really a great place where passionate people are. Now, we all know about 1,000 true fans. That's like the gold mine for any brand. So I think you want to be engaging in that conversation. You want to be one of those brands that is understood well, that is being recommended, that has great sentiment. But the only way to do that is to join the conversation. So I think that's the one thing that's misunderstood. And you got to join the conversation with the passionate people.
Y'all, Danny's saying it. It's not just me saying think conversation, not campaign. Danny's saying it too. Just join the conversation. So, yes, just do it. Lastly, Danny, tell everybody who's watching or listening where they can find you, how they can connect with you, where they can find out more about ReadyReach, all those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Our website is readyreach.com, REDDIREACH.com. And then I'm very active on LinkedIn. So you type in Danny Kirk ReadyReach, or my handle is Daniel P as in Patrick Kirk. And you'll find me on there. Feel free to reach out. Always happy to chat and give my kind of quick take on your brand.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today and giving us the Reddit rundown. I think, like I said, I've just seen a massive uptick the past couple of years in Reddit. Should we, shouldn't we? So I love that you are here to kind of drop all of your wisdom and experience on us so that we can make better decisions and just join the conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brooke.
Thank you. Reddit isn't a risk to manage if you listen to all of the wonderful things that Danny just told us. It's actually just a conversation that's already happening. People are on there talking about your brand, your products, your industry, and they're doing it whether you're in the room or not. And increasingly, as Danny mentioned, the conversations that are happening on Reddit are the conversations that AI is learning from. So I think the question isn't whether or not to show up. It's whether you're going to show up as a human or let the bot show up for you. And then maybe what's the point if that's going to happen? And hey, if you want to hear what our clients are doing on Reddit, go ahead and book a free chat with me, and I'm happy to discuss with you further. Simply head on over to bsquared.media/chat, CHAT, and book some time with me. And as always, you know what I'm going to say. If this show is helping you think differently about customer experience, social media, AI, please rate and review us. It helps me bring on more brilliant guests like Danny and keeps our community growing with intention. Until next time, think conversation, not campaign.